Yo, yo, yo! In this video, we'll be talking about the basic setup and setting for Shadowrun for people that have never heard of Shadowrun. We won't be talking about any numbers, or character creation, or drugs. We'll probably eventually get to drugs. Instead, we'll be answering questions like, yo, what's a Shadowrun? What's the sex world like? Why does that lady have pointy ears? So enough chit-chatting about nothing. Let's do it! Shadowrun is a cyberpunk role-playing game. You can think visual set pieces and characters that you'd see in media like Blade Runner, the Deus Ex series, Ghost in the Shell, and that upcoming video game Cyberpunk, also based on a tabletop role-playing game. That's Shadowrun. It's a world full of cyber espionage, lowly gangers, and the upper 1% that seems to be controlling everything from the shadows. Easy, right? Now let's get into the setting. Shadowrun takes place decades from now in the future, 2076 for 5th edition. The world as we know it is the same up until 2011. What happens in between 2011 and 2076 isn't super important, regardless what the internet may tell you. But there is one event that you should know about: the Awakening. See, before 2011, we lived in what is called the Fifth World. Here, magic is considered dormant and doesn't exist. But something happened in 2011 that brought us to the Sixth World, when magic returned to the Earth, and some weird stuff happened because of it. It all started at Mount Fuji, when this great dragon named Ryomyo shot himself out of the mountain and flew up next to a bullet train and was like, "Hey guys, how's it going? I'm a great dragon, ain't that neat? I'm immortal and stuff." And then he caused a great panic, and a whole bunch of other magical shit happened, like Native Americans took back their land with their newfound magic powers, and people started giving birth to elves and dwarves. Shadowrun's weird. So those elves and dwarves were initially seen as freaks, but then totally normal 10 years later, when goblinization happened, which is when people started turning to orcs and trolls. Everyone pins this on the Awakening, when magic re-entered our world again. But we'll talk about races later on, when we start to dive more into character creation. Instead, let's turn to the ones who do control the shadows. Megacorps. In Shadowrun, it's not countries that rule the world, it's megacorps. At one point, megacorps were given extraterritoriality, which means that anything that happens on their land, no outside government, foreign or local, may interfere. So they're basically their own country at that point. There are 3 levels of megacorp status: single A, double A, triple A, with triple A being the most powerful, the Big 10. We'll get into those guys later, but just understand that a Big 10 corp doesn't really exist in today's society. The closest would be, say, if Amazon, Comcast, and SpaceX joined forces. So with all these corps, what happens between them? Well, naturally, espionage. Each of these companies are trying to get the leg up on the other, and that kind of work trickles all the way down to the bottom, to people not involved in the corporate sovereignty. And those are the perfect kinds of people for the job, the disposable ones. These are the perfect molds for Shadowrunners. Many of those left out of the corporate limelight don't have a SIN, or serial identification number. Basically everything that has your ID, your social, your blood type, your height, your address, everything. There's lots of different ways that someone can end up being sinless, someone that doesn't have a SIN. Maybe they were born in the Barrens and they never got a SIN. A former corporate wage slave that lost his career, sin and all. Someone on the run had to get their SIN burned. Or maybe you still have a SIN, but to get by, you have to risk it all and run into the shadows. To get by in life, many of these sinless have to resort to street work, maybe even mercenary work, espionage, protection, drug trafficking, anything. And if that work goes belly up, their employers can't be found responsible or liable. These jobs are called Shadowruns. Your character is one of those workers, a Shadowrunner.